Howdy ho, folks. Forgive me as I finish rolling this cigarette. I was sitting here watching a Dennis Wise production. The guy who made The Greatest Story Never Told. This is New World Order Communism by the Back Door. I was watching the second part, which touches upon occultism. And I had cause, which I might go into later, to leave the website and go directly to Part 2's YouTube page to leave a comment there. And by the way, guys, in the description, link to the documentary website. It's very good so far. I only finished Part 2, but I had to get this opinion piece out. I saw a comment from someone who, probably because of his politics, I reckon that he was following Dennis Wise's career. And he said, I'm a National Socialist, but I'm also an atheist, so I don't know what this Luciferian stuff has to do with anything, etc., etc. Didn't bother reading any further, really. Dennis Wise himself commented that, as a National Socialist, I suggest that you watch Part 10. Okay, so I'll get around to that myself at some stage. Something about Hitler fighting war to stop a Jewish holy war being waged. Goofy stuff. But if you are an atheist, or if you're a Christian, or whatever, and you know, I totally don't mind watching conspiracy style videos by Christians, even though I'm not one myself. And even though I believe that Christians are one ham sandwich away from a picnic, they've got it down when it comes to the occult and this New World Order agenda. Much more than atheists do. The thing is that at its root, it all comes down to an occult basis. So if you don't have that little thing that ties it all together, which is its occult, mystical, religious root, then you're really just plucking little bits and pieces here and there, and you're not really getting the full story or seeing how those little bits and pieces really tie together. Now, my thrust, and this is what I commented towards this guy, I'm sure he muted the conversation long ago. You know, after about 10 replies, I'd mute it myself. It doesn't matter if you believe that or not. The people who are doing these things believe that. So it doesn't matter if you don't. You see, a part of understanding your enemy, or think of yourself as a detective, right? And you've been to several crime scenes and you're looking at, okay, what's this guy doing? If you're going to just completely discount this guy's religion and his ideology, what goes on in his head, because you don't subscribe to religion, then you're a really bad detective. And your likelihood of finding this person, finding their MO and their motive, and ultimately them, is reduced dramatically. And furthermore, religion, occult, mysticism. Sorry, I'm just moving my keyboard. God knows why. I'm going to need it later, but when I talk, I do nervous things. This is rooted in deeply ingrained archetypal thinking. Like, this goes back thousands of fucking years. Whether, okay, we now today we talk in terms of Lucifer, and in terms of the Bible, in terms of these very recent mythologies, so recent enough that we remember them. The Greek and the Latin, and this very shadowy Pan type gods from ancient Europe, etc., etc. They have roots even further back than that. Now, the archetypes that the New World Order folk deal with are Luciferianism, the phoenix, the symbology of the phoenix. Now, the Christians will bring up the phoenix and relate that to Luciferianism, and they won't even be able to tell you any more than that. And that's why I say they're one ham sandwich away from a picnic. They can tell you a lot more. Fucking mobile. Than your average atheist, or, someone who isn't into this stuff. But their knowledge stops at a certain point. All they can do is point to something and say, that's evil, that's evil. Except instead of, say, pointing towards it and saying, that's powerful, and it could be used to serve evil. And that's the whole root of magical works, is to use archetypes that aren't necessarily evil or good, because they're all a part of human consciousness. They're not innately evil. They're just aspects of the human being that can be played upon, that can be ingratiated or deprived. Now we have the archetype of Lucifer, the light bearer. And you can look at him in two different ways. You can look at him in the way of someone like Prometheus, bringing the fire of the gods down to the earth to free humanity, give them power that the gods previously had. And, I don't think any Christians would object to humans building fires, okay? So it's all kind of relative. But then you can look at Lucifer as somebody who gives too much light. Light is very useful for lighting a room, lighting your way in a cave or a forest at night. But if you have too much light and in the wrong direction, i.e. in your eyes, it's not that useful to you. The person holding this light directed towards you, you can't see them. They're a silhouette, if you even see them at all. All you can see is your retina burning. That's a negative aspect of Luciferianism. Now, the whole idea of the phoenix is, again, not a positive or negative thing. The idea of the phoenix is that upon defeat, upon death, this ordinary bird, reduced to ashes, was reborn as a flaming spirit. Something much more amazing than it was in its prior incarnation. So that's a good thing, right? But there's also the negative variety, when that archetype is being used against one. Now you see what's happening to the world, that the world economy is being brought to the point of crisis. Africa is being torn to shreds, and barbarianism is being promoted by the world financiers. The Middle East, barbarianism is being promoted through the degenerate Islam. You know, I make no excuses for Islam. There's nothing redeemable whatsoever about that religion. It's fucking filthy. And the Middle East has been slowly evolving out of that. But now you have the Jews and other world powers influencing, seeding that ideology all over again, radicalizing the Middle East. And in Europe, you have hordes of third worlders disaffected with the constant wars and raping of their ancestral lands, flooding into Europe to exact revenge on the white man, the person that they see excuse me, as those who are destroying their lands, as well as just general economic collapse in Europe and the United States. You also have the same effect of South Americans flooding into the United States and then on into Canada with the same motivations, really, to take back what they see as theirs. So this is a planned demolition of the world. And we see a lot of Phoenix symbolism in the rituals and the art and architecture of the New World Order. So the idea is to have a, get this, controlled demolition. So that they control the way it happens, and thus they control the rebirth. They, that it's right there encoded into the terminology, New World Order, something better, something new, a rebirth. But they're going to dictate how it's reborn. So this is all very, very deep archetypal stuff. Okay, a Christian might come along and frame it in such a way that it's, the devil. Okay, and you have to give it a bit of space for that. Allow that to be. Because that's the understanding that they're coming from. And you might not be an occultist like me either, a pagan or what have you. But just kind of take it scientifically. Okay, they're putting certain facts in front of you, and they subscribe to a certain theory that limits their perspective. But just be glad that somebody is coming along and giving you almost the full package. Because you're not getting that from your atheist friends, the counterparts to the Christians. And pagans, I see very little coming from their angle. So be glad that there is somebody out there laying out the truth for you. And just as a closing little commentary, I'm sure. And by the way, again, link to New World Order Communism by the Back Door in the description. Near the end of part 2, they went through a list of, the agenda is, blah, 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 one world religion, Luciferianism, one world currency, to be decided. I thought, okay, this is my opportunity to spin my theory. So I went to the YouTube page of that video itself and said, hey, I have a theory for what that currency is. I think it is decided, and it's called Bitcoin. Now, there's even a documentary called Bitcoin, the End of Currency as We Know It, or the End of Money as We Know It. Not quite sure. And I'm sure that you've heard the theory out there that the agenda is to get rid of paper money, to get rid of money that you can hold in your hand, so that if at any point the world system decides that you've been a bad boy and you should be shut down, then they can just cancel your ability to interact with others financially. I believe that Bitcoin is perfect for that. They're giving people the idea that this is anti-establishment, that this is breaking away from any centralized control because of some kind of woo-woo in technology that allows you to have, say, a Bitcoin unit which can't be replicated, can't be hacked, but can be transferred in its decimals or in whole from person to person without any central administration. There's no central server where all the Bitcoins are registered and kept track of. They're just individually traded amongst individuals. Now, what I haven't been able to figure out as somebody who, I'm not a huge coder, I don't code on the level of, what builds your Windows or Apple or Linux. But I code on the level of browser codes, the stuff that makes your websites. And I understand a bit about databases. Now, what I don't understand is what exactly makes it so that a Bitcoin can't be replicated. You know how you replicate a MP3? Well, what's to stop me from replicating a Bitcoin? It's code, right? That's all it could ever be. So why can't I just duplicate that code? And if there is no central database keeping track of where each Bitcoin is, then what's to tell whether the Bitcoin that I copied or my copy of the Bitcoin is real? I would say that it's impossible. Nobody can explain to me how that woo-woo actually happens. Like, literally, I go to what I would say is my superiors, people who work in networks, people who work in C++ and all that incomprehensible stuff, and they can't explain that to me either. And it seems that so many people haven't even fucking contemplated that. They haven't even gotten around to thinking, wait, how is that actually possible? They just kind of take it on faith that, oh yes, this is a totally free of, it is an anti-establishment, uncentralized currency. And what if there are giant fucking servers out there? I mean, like, look at Google. There's no way, without black budget CIA funding, that corporation could stand on its own 2 feet. And yet it has Google Maps, it has these mountains of data that flow through its servers all day, every day, serving pretty much all of the English-speaking world and beyond. And now they used to have this game, Ingress, the GPS augmented reality game that you play through your mobile phone. I had great fun with that. But now they have Pokemon Go, a game that is basically the same thing, handling probably 100 times more of the data than Ingress, and by daily usage has outstripped fucking Twitter in the first week. Okay, just wrap your minds around that, right? Who's paying for that? So if that can just materialize out of nowhere, I'm pretty sure that there's probably a database somewhere in the middle of the desert in the United States that's handling all these bitcoins, making sure that they're all, playing by the rules, as databases do. So, what if that's the New World Order currency, the one world currency that we're all being pushed into? A few years ago, it used to be, it was in the phase of where you dedicate some of your computer processing to mine bitcoins, which basically meant like every hour you would get 0.01 bitcoins or something like that by lending your processing power to, processing Bitcoin transactions. The idea is that your computer now is used as a server to say, okay, Jim is now transferring X amount of Bitcoins to Sally. And people were, at the start very suspicious about this. One particular guy would make YouTube video after YouTube video saying, you're all are fucking crazy for lending your computer processing power to this thing. It's all a big scam. They're probably just hacking loads of computers, like a botnet situation, hacking other people's computers. I swear, I hate my fucking phone, man. Anyway, sorry. And that was before we kind of realized that this was more of a global phenomena. Now there's so many famous people and so many institutions that are backing this Bitcoin thing now. And I constantly have people coming to me and saying, oh, why don't you have Bitcoin wallet and a donate button on EVRN? And one particular guy that I'm good friends with, I was at his house one day and I happened to see a receipt or some kind of transaction thing talking about how he bought 1,700 British pounds worth of Bitcoin off of somebody. I mean, this thing is picking up pace here. Like, this is no joke. This This is one of these things where you think, oh, this is not such a big deal, but then you open up your fucking window one morning, you know, a few weeks down the line, and it's taken a grip of the whole world. I think this is the kind of situation we're looking at here. And whether we decide personally to play a part in this, us individuals, us rogues, and us normal people going about our lives still using our euros, our pesos and our dollars, whether we join in on that or not, there's going to be such a momentum for it. And then all of a sudden, our world economy is just going to crash into the fucking sand like so many sandcastles. And all we're left with is Bitcoin. And the New World Order turns around and says to us, hey, you're free now. You're economically free. Go for it. Have fun with your Bitcoins. Because I'm just not buying it. This shit's not free. It's not egalitarian. Anyway, I've rabbited on long enough. I'm going to go back to figure out what my friend Simon is fucking saying that really badly needs my attention. And back to watching this documentary by Dennis Wise. By the way, link in the motherfucking description. And remember, Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Irish Standard Time on evrn.net. Listen into the anti-broadcast bitches. Yeah, that's that date.